Hello and welcome back. I just made a video. I don't know if you've seen it in my list there, but I just made a video about how many years you should go back to account for your experience on your resume. So if you missed that and you were wondering the answer to that question, pop over to that video. But for this video, I wanted to answer the question, how many pages should my resume be? Well, if you watched that last video, you know that the answer to most of my questions is that it depends. You would make your answer or your choice based on whatever makes the most sense for the employer and for that job. If you're a more mature candidate with, like myself, about 30 years of work experience, and it's been in different industries, you're probably not going to have a one-page resume. I would rather coach you to put everything that offers value to the employer on your resume. Be very intentional with your words. Have only the words that add value and remove any fluff or things that are irrelevant. We don't have to have, for example, 6 bulleted items for every job, especially if those jobs weren't directly related to the new best thing you're applying for. You might only need 1 bullet, maybe 2 bullets. You might even choose a functional resume format, depending on if you are more mature and have a lot of years, that might be the better way to go. But again, I'd rather see you have more information that's all really solid than leave out some things that would add value. And again, in the last video, we talked about when you leave whole jobs out, sometimes it can suggest that there's a gap, and the gap gets employers wondering in not the best way. I wanted to also, there's so many things I want to say, and you guys know I generally don't prepare a script because I like to say it as it comes to me. But I will say, if you ever plan to work for a city, state, or county entity, you should not worry about trying to make your resume as concise as possible. I can speak directly for the state of Arizona, but I've also been on calls with the federal government, and they give the same advice. And that is, when you apply for jobs in those city, state, or county roles, they're going to give you a scoring. There's a grading rubric based on how well you show on your resume that it applies directly to everything in the job posting. And I mean word for word. You don't want to use similar words because you think they'll know what I mean. No, sir, no, ma'am. You want to use the exact words. When you follow this kind of guidance, it's going to seem kind of weird and almost too easy. You go, Carol, what do you mean? I just took the exact bullets from the job description, popped them in my resume, and then I changed them according to my experience. I'm going to say yes. Try to keep as much of that wording as possible. If the job description has 12 bullets, then you put those 12 bullets everywhere that you have done them. And if your resume is 6 pages long, well, too bad, so sad. You want to do that for a couple of reasons. One, because again, you're going to be scored based on how many times the wording in your resume matches the wording in the job description. Secondly, if you kind of halfway do it and only put some bullets, because otherwise it looks really repetitive, they're going to use your resume and possibly your cover letter, which is a story for a separate video, to decide how much to pay you. The pay range, it gets based on whatever you have put in your document, your black and white resume, which by the way should be black and white, no color. That's the tool that's going to be used if you're hired later to figure out your salary. So if you leave out jobs entirely, or you don't account for all of those bullets in every place that's applicable, you've just kind of walked into probably a lower salary or a difficult time negotiating the salary you deserve because you didn't include it in your application materials. The other thing, so that's city, state, and county. The other thing is we want to be mindful of the reader for sure. So non-academic, not specialty roles where you actually would probably use a curriculum vitae. And if that's you, you know what I mean, pop over and watch a video for a curriculum vitae. Like if you're a college educator and or work in a STEM field, you probably need to have a CV. So I'm not talking to you guys right now. I'm talking to people outside of that. You probably don't need a 5 or 6 page resume. In most cases, you just need an objective or summary statement, which I'll make a separate video about that. you may have a list of skills and sorry, I'm feeling strangely because I had a hamburger before recording this, and so I keep feeling it. So sorry if it looks distracting. And sorry, that's too much information, but I had a hamburger and I don't usually have them. Sorry, so again, you'd probably have your header information, which does not go in the header section. You would have an objective or a summary statement. You would have maybe a list of some skills, which may or may not, they can be bulleted, but they should not be in 2 columns because of tracking systems. You're going to have obviously your professional experience. You might have a related experience section. And then of course, I highly encourage always to have a civic engagement section, which talks about your volunteer work at any point ever, put it on there. And then you may or may not, you should have an education section. But so those are your sections. You're not going to have like publications and lectures and, you know, things like that because it's not a CV. So what I would recommend is, again, the answer is do what makes the most sense for that employer, for that job based on your experience. There are ways to condense your content even more. And that would be, for example, if you had, I've been with the same district for 20 some years now, and I've obviously had multiple jobs. And so I don't have that same company listed every single time over and over again. Instead, on the line where I put what my job was or is, I would put a slash and this one, then this one, then this one, and this one. So I really just have one entry with at the top all of my relevant titles. And in the bullets, I would put all of the relevant bulleted items. They don't need to know. For example, I'm a faculty right now. If I were going to go back into career services work, the bulleted items that I'm going to include on my resume will primarily relate to my career services work. And then I'll have a little bit of faculty or academic advising work under that if they relate to what I'm going to do in career services. For example, teaching workshops. I'm obviously going to talk about that. But I don't need to list all the other things I've done in every other role because they've come to my resume just to look at me as a career services person. If I start adding content just because it's cool that I did it, I create confusion for them. When I want them to see me as a career services person, they're probably going to leave and go, well, she can do lots of things. So how do I know if she really likes this one? I don't want to create doubt, and extra information can sometimes create doubt. So the good rule of thumb is just follow the job description for the most part. Whatever they told you they want to see, go ahead and use those words because they just told you. You can put a couple extra things that maybe you think they forgot and would add some value, like maybe a certain software or extra, project work that you did. Go ahead and add that, but you don't need to lots and lots of bullets if those bulleted items don't apply. The other thing I'll mention here that I forgot to mention in the last video is that your formatting should be awesome, meaning you don't have a lot of white space. You don't have a lot for the margins. Your font can be 10 points. Is there anything else you can do to shrink the space? Oh, your line spacing and your spacing between paragraphs can be smaller. People like me who have readers and need to use them will not love probably having to put on glasses, but I'd rather you get as much solid content in your marketing material, which is your resume, than think, oh, I'm just going to put some of it and they'll know all the rest of it. I hope that was helpful. Again, we answered the question, how many pages should your resume be? It just depends. If you're a more mature candidate, it's going to be longer. If you are just fresh out of college, let's not make it 2 pages by way of adding fluff. If you have solid content, great. And by the way, if you're a new graduate, or I'm sorry, well, college graduate, we shouldn't be having anything about high school on the resume. I think once you're even in college for a year, you want to start leaving high school behind. More about that on another video. Thanks, everybody. Bye.